Hi, I'm Sylvia Hunt from Laurentian University, and at the conference this year I presented a paper on gastropolitics and the cookbook wars of the long 18th century, particularly looking at the cookbook writer Hannah Glasse and her really important cookbook that she produced in the mid-18th century. And I'm going to be reproducing a couple of those recipes for you today. And the first one I'm looking at is Hannah Glasse's version of an Indian curry. And Hannah Glasse is the first to reproduce Indian cuisine and curry in her textbook, or in her cookbook. And I'm curious about this one. I love curry, I love Indian food, but how did an 18th century woman replicate an authentic curry? So the recipe today, and I'll include the recipes for you in a PowerPoint, the recipe is called To Make Curry in the Indian Way. And I've had to downsize it because she calls for 2 whole chickens, a pound of butter, and lots of other things. So I'm trying to reproduce it in my own kitchen. I've just picked 2 chicken breasts, 1 large onion. So you're supposed to cut up the onion, cut up the chicken as if for a fricassee, brown them in a pan in all this butter, and then return them to the pan. So here we go. Here's my cooked chicken and onion. And over top of them, you add ground spices of turmeric, ginger, and ground pepper. So I tried to reproduce that in my pestle and sprinkle that over top. Turmeric, ginger, and ground pepper. And then salt to taste. So whatever that means. So I'll add a bit of salt here. And then we return this to the heat. Let it all mix up. Ooh, that's not good. And then to this, we're going to add the juice of a lemon and then cream. So I've juiced a lemon already. And I'm not sure how this is going to work by adding cream, if it may all just become a big curdly mess, but we'll find out. So there's the juice of a lemon. And we'll mix that in with the chicken, which is looking a beautiful, beautiful yellowy orange color with the turmeric. And now we'll add some cream to the mixture. And heat this through. And of course, in our 18th century cookbooks, there's no measurements offered. It's more by size, so a lardon, a roll, a size of a shilling, that sort of thing. So this is Hannah Glasse's curry in an Indian way, and let's dish this up, and I'll see if I can get my husband to take a picture of this when I bring it over, and let's see what this tastes like. So I'll bring it over to you, Michelle. Let's bring a fork. You and I can both try it, Michelle.
Okay.
And let's see what this is like. So, this is Hannah Glasse's curry made in the Indian way, 18th century version of Indian curry, and let's give it a try. I'm rather nervous about this. It smells very good. A lot of turmeric, way too much turmeric, but very tasty. And I can imagine for the English palate, this would be a very interesting combination, rather exotic. They would have had these spices before, but the addition of lemon and then the cream, a very nice dish. A little bit more turmeric than I like, but if you want to try it at home, here is an 18th century version of Indian food lovely curry dish, and I'll put the recipe up for you. Our second recipe from Hannah Glass's cookbook really interested me because normally with cucumbers, today we think of pickles if we're going to preserve cucumbers, like little cornichons, or we eat them raw. But Hannah Glass offers up a side dish, and it's called to stew cucumbers. So she offers a form of cooked cucumber as a nice side dish, she calls it. So her recipe calls for peeling or paring 12 cucumbers. Now I can only assume, I have no idea what cucumber she would have used, but I've used an English cucumber for this recipe and I've already started it. So peel your cucumbers, slice them as thick as a crown, I guessed, since I don't know how thick an 18th century crown was, and place them to drain. So dry them off on a good thick cloth, and then flour them, and fry them in a lot of butter. So I currently have my cucumbers frying here, so I'll bring them over for you to see. So there they are, frying in butter. And I'll flip them over. Oh, they're looking interesting. So we have our floured cucumbers frying in a lot of butter. There they are, nice and brown on one side. And then, so fry them till they're brown. And then put to them some gravy. So I have a gravy, just a gravy sauce, a beef jus back here, that I've already added a bit of red wine to. So she calls her a bit of claret. And then to this, and again, Hannah Glass, if you listen to my paper at all, while the French are going with French cuisine and le vrai goût and the simplicity of flavor that's coming out of France, Hannah Glass is still dealing with mace, which is the shell of the nutmeg, very spicy. Mace, nutmeg. So we've got in here ground pepper, cloves, and mace. Very heavy medieval spicing. So again, 18th century cuisine is still very medieval in its spicing. So to these delicate cucumbers, we're going to strew over them, the recipe calls, this mixture of cloves, mace, or basically nutmeg, because mace is hard to find, and ground pepper. Ooh, and it's quite strong smelling. You do that, and add a little bit. She doesn't tell us how much, but add some gravy. Hopefully they won't go to mush. And she tells us this makes a nice side dish. So let me put this up and we can see what Hannah Glass's stewed cucumbers look like. And I'm curious, I have a love-hate relationship with cucumbers, but let's see what these really, so here they are. This is what Hannah Glass's stewed cucumbers look like. And let's see what that, and you can really smell here the cloves. It's very strong, and the mace, which will have a very pungent odor. So let's, oh, I'm very nervous. Not to my liking at all. The cloves overpower the dish. I didn't fry them long. They're mushy. But if you're an 18th century person, this is one way to serve cucumbers stewed. I don't recommend it. Highly flavored. Yeah, anyway, enjoy if you want to try it. But stewed cucumbers. I'll be back with my final recipe. recipe I'm going to do from Hannah Glass's very important cookbook is a recipe for plague. I thought this might be appropriate given the current world circumstances, but unlike many cookbook writers of the period, Hannah Glass does not include many medical recipes. She includes one for rabid dog, for bite. She includes one for bed bugs in linens, and she includes one for plague. And the rest, she says, she leaves up to apothecaries since they are better judges. But these might be 3 issues of concern to the female housekeeper of keeping linens clean, rabid dog not sure about, but plague was still an ongoing concern even in 1747 when this cookbook was written. And she offers a cure for plague. And I'll read you the recipe. Recipe for the plague. You take rue, which I couldn't find, so I'm adjusting it slightly. Sage, mint, I've got all my things here. Sage, mint, rosemary, wormwood, and lavender. So I've got everything but rue here in my pot, and a handful of each of these. Infuse them together in white wine vinegar. So I'm going to add these to my white wine vinegar and put the whole in a stone pot, closely covered, and warm it up on warm wood ashes. So you keep it warm for 4 days in this stone pot. After which, drain through fine flannel the liquid and put it into bottles well corked. Into each bottle, put 1/4 ounce of camphor. So again, camphor is very hard to come by, but that's mothballs. Camphor is in mothballs. So I've got my mothballs here. With this preparation, wash your mouth. So use it as a mouthwash to purge your mouth. Rub your loins and your temples every day. Snuff a little bit up your nostrils when you go into the air, and carry about you a bit of sponge dipped in the same in order to smell upon all occasions, especially when you're near any place or person that is infected. So they write, and she tells this wonderful apocryphal story, that 4 malefactors who had robbed infected houses and murdered the people during the course of the plague own, when they came to the gallows, that they preserved themselves from the contagion by using this medicine, and that they went the whole time from house to house without any fear of distemper. So let's make up our own cure for the plague. If it doesn't cure you, it'll certainly keep people away from you, which would be a cure for the plague. So I'm going to do this quickly, and we'll drain this off. Very pretty color. Oh, really pungent to the nose. And at the risk of creating something toxic, I'm going to drop in a couple mothballs. Oh, and I'm sure my husband can smell it all the way across the room. This is really potent. And now this cure for the plague needs to be kept like this for 4 days, then bottled, and then used on the body, carried around, my eyes are watering, carried around on sponges or in handkerchiefs, and it is supposedly a cure for the plague. But like I said, it is so potent, nobody will come near you, and thus you're in no danger of the plague. So once again, I'll just show you the 3 recipes we made today. I'll bring them over for you to look at. From Hannah Glass's really important English cooking made plain and simple. And our curry made the Indian way, the first Indian curry in an English cookbook. Very good. Do not recommend the stewed cucumbers, but I'm open to any improvements on that recipe, and our cure for the plague, all from Hannah Glass's very important 18th century cookbook.
I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much.